It is 10 a.m. Eastern, week 1. College football season is here. I'm Austin Nace. Guys, Matt Bruning, Chris Moxley, Brandon Hay here with me. This is the Tailgate brought to you by Campus to Canton. How are we feeling this morning? I know last week we were hyped. It was the first week of football. This is the first real week of football. I feel like every week's going to be the first week of something, and we're just going to be really, really hyped every single week.
Just wait till Matt.
Absolutely. We got to. Oh, well, exactly. Not only that, we've got tons of great games on today. We've already had a bunch of really good college games, so I'm excited to just dive in and talk everything that actually matters college football outside of the 5 kind of horrible games we got last week.
Yeah, a lot of blowouts last week. Not a lot of big teams. This week, full slate. We've got everybody beyond, some of the teams that have already kicked off, and we are going to talk about those in a minute. Brandon, how are you doing this morning, man? You're repping Michigan down there. How are you feeling about them today against Western Michigan?
Actually, I got kind of in a rabbit hole last night watching some hype videos of people that create Michigan hype videos. I do this every year, and then I couldn't sleep, so I'm pretty excited. I know I'll be disappointed eventually, but I don't think it'll be the first week. So I'm pretty pumped for today's game.
What time does that game kick off? Is it like the early morning game? Or
yeah,
the early slate? So you're going to be disappointed by 2 o'clock Eastern. Okay. Yeah. I was just trying to figure out when to send you a text of like, hey, great season, bud. Great season.
Yeah, if anyone needs to get a hold of Brandon, make sure you do it by about 2 o'clock Eastern. He will be unreachable for the rest of the day after that. All right, guys. So I know we have a lot of really awesome games to talk about for today, but we've also had some big ones go on the past couple of days, some upsets, some almost upsets, some big performances. So let's review the past couple of days before we jump into today. I think the big storyline is that Ohio State game that happened on Thursday night. Ohio State bringing in that new quarterback, C.J. Stroud, a lot of new pieces elsewhere on that team as well. Went into Minnesota. Really, really struggled early, was down for most of the first half, came back to win and make it look better than it actually was in the second half, 45-31. Brandon, I'm going to come to you on this one first. Since you said you watch all the Ohio State games, you're a closet Ohio State fan. Tell us what you thought went wrong for Ohio State and for C.J. Stroud.
So I just wanted to make it clear, I'm not a closet Ohio State fan. I watch the games just so I can make sure I'm educated on our, big rival, and so I can be educated when I talk crap about them. So now that we said that, I was disappointed with how Stroud looked early on. It seemed like he wasn't throwing on the run very well, overthrew a lot of receivers. The one interception off of Olave's hands was behind him. So with those receivers against Minnesota that isn't known for having the best, defense and secondary, it looked like guys were running open. He just wasn't getting them the ball. He looked better in the second half, but I kind of talked to Matt about this last night. I kind of worry outside of Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave this year, if any of those other receivers will really be able to put up that much production, because it seems like it's just going to be those 2 guys based on the targeting, at least in the first week. And another thing I saw is they can't keep Travion off the field. I mean, with that one run, the acceleration was ridiculous. So I think, like we thought, they would start off with Teagan Williams, and then I think Travion by, maybe week 4 or 5 will start to take over that backfield.
Matt, I know you were very much in the minority all offseason. You said you thought Kyle McCord should win that job. He did not. They went with Stroud.
Yeah.
At halftime, you had to be feeling pretty good about that take. Are you? What are your thoughts post game now that you've had a couple days to digest?
I'm still worried about him because Brandon mentioned we talked last night. We actually had like a long discussion about this last night. I thought at first you saw a lot of people on Twitter saying that they thought it was just jitters, right? And could have been, I mentioned it on literally Debbie Debate that I thought this game was a little bit worrisome because it was literally his first start. And the biggest game he had played in up until this point was the national championship game. There's only 20,000 people in the stands. It was not a packed house. There was 60,000 in Minnesota. It was he was going into a rival stadium. That team was going to be ready to go. They wanted to beat Ohio State. It's a, you joked about it on, I think, last week's Debbie debate or whatever it was with Collar. No, I think it was on Tailgate or Coast to Coast last week that I said it was like a Super Bowl for them. And I do think that was a big game for Minnesota. They wanted to beat Ohio State. So maybe it was just jitters. But I feel like if it was jitters, he'd have been like just throwing the ball too high, right? Like just trying to throw it a little bit too harder. He was missing guys by like 10, 15 yards sometimes. Like I don't know that it was jitters. And something that really stood out to me that Brandon brought up, he was missing players on almost every throw on the run, which was kind of like a staple of what we thought CJ Stroud was going to be able to bring to this. He was not as athletic as I think some people were giving him credit for. Now I get it. He had that 60-yard touchdown run last year, and all of a sudden everybody's like, he's the next Justin Fields. He wasn't outrunning anybody last night or Thursday night. He was getting caught a lot, and I think that just speaks more to he's not quite as fast as people maybe thought he was after watching that one run last year. I don't think he's going to get benched. And for all of you and some of the people, and you'll know who I am, I was not saying CJ Stroud needed to get benched. I pointed out, and everybody in this little room here will know, I've said from the beginning I thought Kyle McCord was the better quarterback and should have started. Me saying that doesn't mean I think CJ Stroud should get benched. He wasn't – what he did Thursday night was not bench worthy. But if that continues, I would not be surprised if that happens. But you've got to give him some run. That was literally his first start. You're not going to pull him at halftime. But Oregon – is a different team. That defense is not going to give up some of the crap that Minnesota gave up Thursday night, and they'll stay in that game. Oregon would not have lost that game, in my opinion, Thursday night had they played Oregon. I think Oregon would have won because Minnesota let them get away with some stuff that Oregon will not next Saturday. So they need to get together and get that shit figured out quickly.
So, passing game struggles. The second half, there were some big catches for Olave, for Wilson. They all ended up having decent days. Travion had that long catch and run as well. The running back room there, though, I think is intriguing. Felix, Jake Hainer had jitters. CJ Stroud sucks. That's very, very rude. Ohio State split the carries pretty broadly the other night. Mayan Williams got the start. He had 9 carries for 125 yards and 1 touchdown. Really, those stats are bolstered by that 70-ish yard touchdown run he had there in, I believe, the first quarter. Master Teague had 6 for 29. Travion Henderson had 2 for 15. Marcus Crowley got some action as well, 6 for 19. Chris, I'll come to you with this one. I know we all want Travion Henderson to kind of take this job. I don't know if he will at any point this season. So what are we doing in terms of starting these guys in CFF leagues, CTC leagues, DFS? How are you playing this?
So I don't know if you can confidently start anyone in CFF or like in your C2C lineup currently. They're just splitting carries, and that's kind of what you expect. I think Travion will eventually take the job and be the lead guy by the end of the year. He's just too good. And I think everybody knows he's too good. I thought Mayan Williams looked, he looked like a meatball, but he was good. So I'm probably not starting them, especially next week against Oregon. I mean, they just split too much. We just don't really know how it's going to shake out. And it's probably an evolving backfield for the rest of the year. And so do I have week-to-week confidence in them? Not really. I mean, we did see Travion, and we saw he's capable of. So I think that cements a lot of his canvas can value. And just like he's a first-round pick, and he should have been. We all saw it.
Yeah, that long touchdown for anybody that missed that game, caught a little pass out in the flat, and then just like he was shot out of a cannon. 70 yards. I mean, you saw the speed, the athleticism for a guy that's 215 pounds already. He's got great size, great hands, all of that.
It was sexy.
It was very sexy. One last question here for you guys on this game before we move on. Mo Ibrahim, I don't know if they've officially announced what it was, but they showed the slow-mo on TV, and it very much looked like an Achilles tear or a rupture, or however you're supposed to phrase it. That's what all the doctor guys on Twitter have said. So if he is out for the year, that probably really hurts Minnesota's offense. I guess I'll come back to you for this one, Chris. Treson Potts, I mean, Cam Wiley, I know that there's some options there. Are those guys, do they just immediately step into that role from a volume perspective, you think?
So I didn't think Potts, look, I think Potts is definitely not Mo Ibrahim. Like that is not a close to 1-for-1. And I like Potts more than I like Cam Wiley. I like both guys. I think it's probably going to be maybe like 60-40 split until something happens. That's horrible for Minnesota's offense. I mean, Minnesota really is going to struggle this year without Ibrahim. He just tore up Ohio State. I mean, he looked great. I was never big on him as an NFL draft prospect. And so I think this really hurts him in terms of like the Ibrahim side of this. Him tearing his Achilles is like the worst possible injury for him. Like it really, really sucks for him. And like all running backs is bad for, but especially a guy like Ibrahim who has that style of play. So I'm really bummed about that for him. But I don't really like the Minnesota backfield either. I mean, it's fine, but I don't know what it looks like. We just need clarity. It's the same deal with Ohio State, right? Like what's going to happen? I don't really know.
A lot of uncertainty there. Do we feel good about any of their receiving options? Dylan Wright had a nice touchdown. Mossed a corner there, almost had another one. Daniel Jackson had 3 for 58 as well. Matt, do you feel strongly about either of those options while Chris Ottman-Bell is still, shaky health-wise?
I actually kind of like both of them. I mean, for as bad as Ohio State's secondary is, it's probably still one of the better ones in the Big Ten. So that's probably one of the better matchups they're going to get. I don't know that they play Indiana this year. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think Indiana's probably the only other team that has a really good secondary in the Big Ten. So I'd be fine playing. I like Daniel Jackson more, but that also may be more of just like a C2C play than Wright. But I'd be fine starting either one of them in your flex spots. Most of you are starting CFF and C2C leagues. You've got likely at least 3 different flex spots. So I'd be fine playing either one of them in one of my flex spots every single week, especially now with Ibrahim down, because I don't think either one of those running backs, like Moxley mentioned, is going to do much. So I think Minnesota's going to have to pass a lot to stay in games and try and win games.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. The other big game that happened over the past couple of days, Northwestern Michigan. No, I'm just kidding. UNC played Virginia Tech last night at Virginia Tech. Crowd was hopping. I've seen some videos of when they ran out, and it chills, seriously.
Enter Sandman. It's one of the best ones. It really is.
Every time. Yeah. UNC lost. They really did not look good at all in that game. Sam Howell struggled. The whole offense struggled. Matt, you watched that game, correct?
Yes. I was glued in.
What are you taking away from this performance with Sam Howell? All of a sudden is a day 3 pick according to Twitter.
So all I have to say to UNC and Sam Howell is I'm sorry. You were the team that I was all in on this offseason, and I feel like I'm the reason why you guys suck. I picked Sam Howell to win the Heisman and the Davey O'Brien in the article that will be dropping later today. So that's going to look just beautiful after the egg that he laid last night. But I do think a lot of it, we were talking a little bit pre-show, I think a big part of it is that offensive line. And you don't have a Javonte or a Michael Carter to just dump the ball off to and let them do all kinds of work to get you those extra yards. You lose a guy like De'Ami Brown, who we've seen, even though he got drafted, I think in like the 4th or 5th round in the NFL, has really been surprising at Washington's camp. Say what you want about Daz Newsome, didn't make the Bears, but he was a really good receiver for them. It really seemed like they only had downs. I don't even know if Brown played last night. I didn't see much of him if he did. I picked them to beat Clemson, make it to the playoffs, and this offense, everybody else was right, I guess. I didn't believe that losing those players was going to be that big a deal. I thought Howe was going to be able to put everything on his shoulders. He tried. I can't put much on him outside of that horrible interception at the end of the game. He tried to carry this offense, but that offensive line had him running, and he's not a DJU. Jaden Daniels a little bit more athletic, but he's not in that class where he can use his legs to really create. It's more of to buy time. And when that, as soon as the ball is snapped and that offensive line is already right at your feet and the defenders are trying to stack you, you're just not gonna be able to do much on offense.
Yeah. The rest of that, none of the skill position guys looked great outside of Josh Downs. We're going to talk about him in a minute here. Chris, do you, Ty Chandler's there at running back. Was okay. He took what was there, but nothing else really. You know, they rotated in a couple other backs. None of them were exceptional. The line probably, like Matt said, to blame for that a little bit. And none of the other receivers really stepped up. Are we expecting? Can we get another weapon beyond Josh Downs here at some point this year to give Sam Howell some help, or is this really a Sam Howell gotta make somebody look good situation?
I don't know. The receivers looked bad last night too. I mean, none of them could get separation. That interception that he threw, the Olsen, who I wasn't familiar with before that play, got the ball just like snatched from him, and he just didn't even try. I mean, they look terrible. Like the whole offense. I don't really. Sam Howell looked bad too, and there is ownership that he has to take for that performance. I don't think it's all the surrounding. Like, I just thought he looked poor. He was holding the ball too long, which he likes to do. I'm a Sam Howell guy. Like, I think he's the best quarterback in this class, but he was exposed a little bit last night for his weaknesses, and he needs to be better. And I don't think we're getting another piece in that offense until someone separates themselves. And maybe that is Coffrey Brown later in the year. Maybe that's, I don't think it's Antoine Green. I don't think it's Emery Simmons. I'll tell you that.
Maybe that's.
But Josh Downs looked awesome.
Yeah, Josh Downs was awesome.
Maybe Bo Corrales.
Yeah,
maybe Bo Corrales. I mean, they were missing Bo Corrales, so you never know. He could be the key to unlocking that offense.
Yeah, say what you want about Bo Corrales, who's been basically their third option there the past few years, or maybe closer to fourth or fifth option, but he brings some seniority, some experience to that room. Josh Downs, 9 for 132 and 1 yesterday. Big day. They went to him early and often. Sam Howell really likes Josh Downs. I've said all offseason I think he's a wide receiver 1 this year overall over the course of the season, just based on sheer volume he's going to see. How do you feel about Josh Downs, Brandon? Are you a truther or not?
Yeah, I really like Josh Downs, and as you saw last night, he's going to be targeted a lot. And since the other receivers aren't really showing up, I think if Howell gets in trouble, he'll continue to go to Downs. So I would agree that he's going to continue his production probably all year.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what's going to help him is the fact that there's nobody else there right now, and part of it obviously that Howell likes him. Yesterday seems like what we're going to see out of him all year, though. Like that probably a chance for a big touchdown play or two every week, and then a volume underneath. And I think you can get the explosive plays and just the straight volume there for him. Any last thoughts on the UNC game, guys? Before we jump into a little piece from Jarek.
I thought Burmeister looked interesting. I thought he was better than I thought he'd be. He was athletic. I think he could be a weekly starter in your leagues. I think he has a rushing upside to do it. He's not like a top 30 guy, but he's higher than I had him going into yesterday.
He had some nice throws on the perimeter.
He had
30 yards
that one
downfield.
Throw,
yeah. There was a
really
couple
nice
that
throw.
stood out last night.
Trey Turner.
Yeah.
So he was impressive, more impressive than I thought he was going to be. So I'm a little bit more excited for the receiving options there than I was. I think Trey Turner is interesting. I love Tavion Robinson and James Mitchell, obviously. So that offense could have a little bit of value this year.
Yeah, Robinson should have had that touchdown there where he failed to get a foot in the corner of the end zone on another great throw by Braxton Burmeister. So take that one, put that one on the board for him and an even better day. All right, guys. As we did last week, Jarek is going to go by the numbers here for us and tell us a little bit about a player that he's looking for today.
Understand the numbers. It's time to dive into the classroom with a beautiful mind, Jarek Backus, and by the numbers.
Thanks. Today I'll be looking at how good Bijan Robinson was as a first-year player. Bijan plays for Texas in the Big 12 Conference. He stands at 6 foot, 215 pounds, and was a 5-star recruit out of high school and the number 1 RB in his 2021 recruiting class. Last year was his first season. He had 86 rushing attempts for 703 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also added 15 receptions for 196 yards and 2 touchdowns, earning 141 PPR points for his first season. Let's take a look at his advanced stats for his year 1 compared to other players drafted rounds 1 through 3, because, let's be honest, that's where he's going to be drafted. His reception share was 7.2%. That's number 17 in the last 10 years, behind Saquon, Swift, Chubb, Akers, and Dobbins, but ahead of players like Christian McCaffrey and Kareem Hunt. His dominator rating, which is his share of the team's rushing and receiving work, was 17%. That's around players like Etienne, Hunt, Ingram, Dobbins, Rojo, and Dalvin Cook. His backfield dominator rating was 48%. Backfield dominator rating is his share of the backfield work, only including running backs. That was good for number 11 in the last 10 years, behind Taylor, Ingram, Akers, but ahead of players like Dobbins, McCaffrey, and Montgomery. His yards per team play was 1.26, and also number 11 in the last 10 years, around big names such as Akers, Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, and Rojo. Looking at all these advanced stats, he is routinely around players like Saquon, Swift, Akers, Chubb, Dobbins, and routinely ahead of McCaffrey for freshman year production. I honestly think with his size, speed, pedigree, and production, he is a lock for first round draft capital. Now back to you.
If Jarek's saying it about one of my favorite players, that is music to my ears. So thank you, Jarek, for that on Bijan Robinson. All right, guys. Now that we've got a full slate of games here today, more or less, we can do some start-sit talk that people will actually care about. So here we go. We've each picked one must start for the week. I'm going to come to you first, Matt, on yours. Who does everybody need to start this week?
Well, I'm sticking with the article that I just talked about earlier where I'm going to get roasted because Sam Howell I picked to win the Heisman. I'm going with the guy I picked to win the Biletnikoff, and that's Calvin Austin III out of Memphis. I think he's going to have a massive season this year. With the upgrade at quarterback with Grant Gunnell, we know that offense is very high-powered. They're going to pass the ball a lot. I think Austin is going to be the guy who receives most of that. I expect him to just overall the year go over 120 catches and get close to 1,500 receiving yards today. And I wrote the notes down and then I closed out of my sheet. So professionalism at its finest. Felix would be very, very mad at me right now. I expect him to go over 100 plus yards today with at least one touchdown, if not two. I think Austin's in for a big game today, starting to kick off my the Grant Gunnell hype train for Mr. Bruning. So if you don't like that, unfollow me today because it's starting today.
Or maybe Calvin Austin bails out a bad Grant Gunnell. Who is to say? All right, Chris.
You won't be able to tell the difference. That's all that matters.
Chris, I know you were debating about a lot of names here, but you narrowed it down for us very, very graciously. Who is your must start this week?
So I love Bryant Koback at Toledo. I think he's in for a huge game. They are gigantic favorites, 49.5-point favorites against Norfolk State. So I think he just puts up a ton of production and they get him out. I think Toledo is actually a good G5 team. I think they're going to probably outperform some expectations this year. But Koback is heavily involved in that offense. He averages 4 receptions a game last season, including games where he had 7, 5. He actually had 7 twice. And he's just their all-purpose, do-it-all back. He had over 21 carries in all but 2 games last year. I mean, I love Bryant Koback this week. I think he's going to have a huge game. He could have something similar to, what we saw from Devonta Price, where he had 5 carries, 130 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Like I think that's within his range of outcomes. I'm not sure he gets pulled that early, but I'm very confident in Koback this week.
Yeah, I mean the guy is a PPR machine. And it's if you just totally ignore the rushing yardage, he's great as a receiving option. So a nice call there. Brandon, who do you like today at the running back position as well?
I like Tank Bigsby with Auburn. He's done well. he did well last year. And then they have Brian Harsin from Boise State, who I looked in the last 4 years before the COVID year. The lead back was averaging around 240 carries a year. So I think they're going to give it to him a lot. And in the spring game, they're having him return kicks too. And I just think they're going to use him all over the field to produce offense because even though some people are high on Bo Nix, I don't think they want to keep the game in his hands too much and just use the talented Tank Bigsby. And today they play Akron, who's finished in the hundreds in rush yards per game, allowed the last 3 years. So I think he should be able to have a big game even if he doesn't play the full 4 quarters.
Yeah, a good shout as well. I also put a running back down here today. I haven't heard a lot of people talking about him. I mean, I'm not deep into the DFS space, so Chris, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know what he's priced at this week, but Ulysses Bentley at SMU just seems like a very obvious guy to have a huge game today. SMU plays Abilene Christian. If you've never heard of Abilene Christian, they're an FCS school. Last year they went 1-5. They gave up a ton of yardage every week on the ground, probably because they were down all game, which is going to be the game script today. SMU is a 32-point favorite with an over/under of 66. So I mean, they're projected to just absolutely blow these guys out of the water, and that means probably early work for Bentley, early and often. He's capable of breaking off a big run or two. I know, we just partnered up with Prize Picks, and I think you guys are going to talk a little bit about them possibly in the second hour. He was like at 89.5 yards there. I hit the over on that. I couldn't click over on that fast enough. I think he goes easily over 100 yards today, probably a pair of touchdowns, and SMU rolls. Do we have any other names, guys, that we just want to toss out as guys that we really, really want to start today? Chris, you're quiet for somebody that had a lot of names earlier.
Yeah.
I like. All right. I like both. I like both of the wide receivers at Western Michigan. I think Western Michigan's going to cover that spread. It's 17, and I think they're going to have to throw a lot. So I like both Jalen Hall. I like Sky Moore. So I'm confident starting both of those guys. I think they're both in for possibly big weeks. I like Greg Bell at San Diego State. They're big favorites. I think he could have a nice game. And I'll give you all one more so I don't take up too much time. I think, I'll actually touch on Zach Evans. I'm not worried about him sitting 2 series. They're big favorites. If I have him, I'm starting him. Simple as that. He's a knucklehead, like Austin likes to say, but he's a talented knucklehead. So I think he's going to have a big game.
You just can't quit Zach Evans. I guess I'll toss another couple names out there. For those that do not listen or watch the Devy debate, I this season will be doing my lukewarm segment and my lukewarm take of the week. My lukewarm take this week is that I'm starting my Cincinnati guys. I think both of those guys, I think you were starting them anyway, but they play Miami of Ohio. I think Desmond Ridder has himself a big day, passing and running. I think Jerome Ford, that main Cincinnati running back over the past couple of years, has been a dominant fantasy guy, and I think he's the most talented of the backs they've had there recently. So give me all of both of those guys. Are there any? Alec Pierce or something? Do you like any of the receiving options there for today, Chris? Who do you like?
So from a DFS perspective, I'm off Alec Pierce and I'm on Josh Wiley, the tight end, which I also think is true in. I think Josh Wiley's a start if you have him. I think he could have a big day. I think if you have Pierce as well, you probably play him. But I'm not like super in on him. But I do like Wiley a lot. I think you probably have better options than Pierce because I expect that game to get out of hand fairly quickly. Spread's 22.5. I think Cincinnati's probably going to cover that. So we'll see. And I just think they're going to run all over them. So, Jerome Ford is probably in for a big game, like you said. I like Pierce fine, but Josh Wiley is really the one that I think I want to pick out there and start.
Yeah, truly the Lucas Warm of takes. And just for anybody that listens to this later, possibly somebody asked about Zach Evans, and they followed up. The other options are Jaden Hasselwood at Oklahoma, Elijah Cooks, wide receiver in Nevada, Sky Moore, wide receiver at Western Michigan, and then I get those directional Michigan schools all confused. And then Kendall Milton, the running back at Georgia. Chris, would you start any of those guys over him? I'm looking through that list.
No, I wouldn't. I don't really care about the 2 series. I mean, what's going to happen, right? Like, he misses 2 series, comes in and rips off like a 60-yard touchdown because he's that much better than the other team. Like, I don't like Jadon Hazelwood. I have not seen Jadon Hazelwood do anything that remotely resembles being a wide receiver, a productive wide receiver. So I'm off of him. That Nevada total is kind of low. I'm not super in love with those options this week. I do like Sky Moore. I think they're going to have to throw. I mean, he was the only one that I would consider. I have no idea what Kendall Milton's role is in that offense. No idea. I think he's probably the third back behind James Cook and Samir White. So what is that role against a good Clemson defense where the total in that game is like 52? So I think Evans is probably your best bet.
Milton feels like a similar play to Travion Henderson, where it's horrible process if you started him this week and you got bailed out by a big play. I think that would basically be what would happen with Kendall Milton if you were to.
But I don't think it happens against Clemson, though. Yeah. I'm not the DFS expert that Mox is calling, but I think I would play more just because I think his volume is going to be better. Like, I agree, Evans could break off that big run. But I know the 2 series isn't a big thing. I just don't know if I trust Gary Patterson to have Evans out there as for getting like a bulk of the carries every single for the entire game. So I think I would go more at least this week until we see for sure that's going to happen.
Do we if we have to start? I know everyone. You're obviously going to start Spencer Rattler this week against Tulane. They're probably going to put up a ton of points. What'd you say?
Sorry, Michael Pratt too. I would start Pratt. I think he's going to be just fine. They're going to throw the ball.
Their team total's under 21 points. At least
I would not start Michael Pratt. And an inaccurate quarterback against a defense that's going to be pretty solid this year today, on the road. That game's going to be a blowout.
I liked him a lot more when it was in New Orleans. And the spread was like 21. And now it went up 10 points when it got moved to Oklahoma. But I will say, they did paint the angry wave on their field.
I was about to say.
That could matter. That could give them a little bump. If you think
upset coming.
Hey,
upset
that could
alert.
be the secret to Tulane covering.
So, I mean, I know. So Rattler's going to have a big day probably. Which receiving option do we want to start today? Mims? Is that just kind of the lock and load? Is there maybe somebody else that we're thinking?
I like Austin Stogner.
I
like Stogner tight end. I think Stogner could have a big game. I also really like Stogner DFS. We'll talk about him, in the next hour. But I'm not really rushing to plug anybody else in. Who knows what anyone's role is behind Mims? It's just a mess right now. We don't know. I have no idea who Jadon Hazelwood is. I have no idea if he's a good player or not. I have no idea what Mario Williams' role is. And we all like him. I have no idea what Cody Jackson's role is. I have no idea what Mike Woods is. Is Mike Woods just a situational deep threat? I'm not really sure. I think you could take dart throws on them. I think there are higher percentage dart throws to take.
Fair enough. Brandon,
I think Rattler also goes under his prop on Prize Picks, by the way.
There you go. Brandon, do you have any other guys beyond Tank Bigsby there that you just have as a must start this week?
I really like Letty Brown with West Virginia. The Maryland defense is not very good, and they've last year Letty kind of broke out, got a lot more yards and a lot more carries. It seems like they kind of run that offense through him, so I think he could have a really big game today.
I mean that game's going to be an interesting one. I actually like the running back that's going to be on the opposite sideline as well, with Tayon Fleet Davis named the starter there. Maryland, they were pretty efficient running the ball last year with Jake Funk, who is in the NFL, but you didn't look at Jake Funk and think he was a particularly special player. I know on Prize Picks, Tayon Fleet Davis opened at about 54.5 rush yards on the day. I think he easily goes over that against a team that gave up just short of 150 yards on the ground per game last year. West Virginia did. I think he, depending on how deep your league is, I mean, if it's like you start 8 or 9 guys, maybe I'm not starting a Tayon Fleet Davis this week, but I know a lot of C2C and CFF leagues, you start maybe you have like 5 or 6 flexes, or, start 3 running back, 4 wide receiver, 3, there are a lot of different permutations out there. And in those kinds of leagues, I think Tayon Fleet-Davis is a sneaky guy to start this week. I feel pretty good about him there against West Virginia.
So let me ask you this, Austin.
Yeah.
Because I'm on the other side of that. I'm not starting him this week because West Virginia is like a top 35 defensive line, and their front seven's probably top 50 or 60, I think, nationally. So would you rather start him, or would you rather start somebody like Lou Nichols? That's a good example. Like, so they're 14-point dogs going into Missouri. Would you rather have him, or would you rather have Fleet-Davis?
I'd rather have Fleet-Davis because I think that game is close. Like, I think they're not going. Maryland does not have to abandon the run in that game, and in fact, I think Maryland can win that game, and I think there will be more.
They are favored.
I think there will be more opportunity there for Fleet-Davis, and they give the ball. I mean, they don't have a bell count necessarily, but they give the majority of the touches to one back, and that is why I just like Tayon Fleet-Davis today over some other guys that maybe I would be thinking about starting this week.
Yeah. I like Chris Smith over Lou Nichols as well.
Yeah.
I really like Lou Nichols. I'm a big fan. I'm not sure this is the week, and I think Chris Smith is going to have a nice game against Texas. A good enough game, even if Amani Bailey gets 40% of the work.
I was about to say, what percentage of the work there do we think that Chris Smith gets? I know that UL offense can trot out 2 or 3 backs at times and make things
like 55%
difficult.
Like 55%.
I hate to agree with Felix.
I
hate to agree with Felix there, but I agree with him. I think I'd go Nichols.
No Kobe Lewis there. Yeah, I mean, that opens up a lot of play for Lou Nichols here early in the year. I mean, you were granted a gift there with Nichols if you had him and Lewis has gone down here.
All
right, guys.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, I like both. I think both are in play. I'm totally in. Not sure there are better options that you have than both Chris Smith and Lou Nichols. So.
Last 2 names I want to toss out here, and we'll talk about the big name last. Brandon Thomas is supposed to be the starting running back here at Memphis. I believe he's a second-year guy, but he's listed as a freshman there on their depth chart. Supposedly looked good in camp. I would be lying if I said I was deep into the inner circle of Memphis there, and I knew a lot about what was going on. They play Nichols. Not Nicholls State. I'm assuming this is a different school. Nichols. I've literally never heard. This is like this. We're gonna look back and what's that high school? The Sycamore, whatever the.
Yeah, Sycamore. Yeah.
This is that. First, like, I've never heard of this team. I've never heard of this team.
It's Nicholls State.
But is it Nicholls State? Okay.
Yeah, they are 23.5-point favorites though.
Okay, where I the thing I have up that has all the games on it just says Nichols. So okay, that's my bad then. But yeah, I mean they're a big favorite there. Does Brandon Thomas have a big day? I'm starting Brandon Thomas in a couple of spots, and I feel pretty good about it overall. Yeah.
I like it.
Okay. Yeah. And then the last name, I know you can't bench him necessarily, but Iowa State plays Northern Iowa. Does that game, like, I know Northern Iowa is not your typical chump FCS team. They are generally a fairly solid team. Breeze probably has a good day. Does that game get out of hand at any point and they sit him? I mean, like, how big of a day do we think that he has? Is that limits his upside a little bit, right?
So he's the most expensive back in DFS, and I'm playing him anyway.
Okay.
So the logic that goes into the big spreads for me is generally, is there a key playmaker, and do I think that key playmaker is going to have the role early, right? So I think Breece Hall has the role early, and I think the game gets away from them because of Breece Hall. I think they're going to maybe not cover, but they have a huge spread. I think Breece Hall is the reason they get there. I think like 203 is in his range of outcomes. I think he's just going to have a monster week.
Yeah, and like I said, you're not benching him anyway. We would never tell you to sit him. But I was just curious if you were thinking upside might be limited a little bit there.
Can I correct you really quick? Yeah. We wouldn't tell you to sit Breece Hall. Felix would tell you to sit Breece Hall. Continue.
Man, taking shots at a guy that isn't even here. All right.
Oh, he's
conversely,
here somewhere.
a lot of names there to probably start for today. Let's talk a little bit about some of our sits. We all tried to choose some bigger names here. Matt, you chose a guy in that Maryland game that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so I picked Raheem Jarrett. I don't think he's going to go out there and have a massive game this week. Just going back and looking at West Virginia last year, they had one of the best ranked cover defenses in college. In fact, ranked number 1. While I like Talia, and I think he's going to be good, and Raheem Jarrett's going to be his number 1 target, I don't even think he goes over 100 yards today. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't score a touchdown. I know in C2C leagues and CFF leagues, he was I don't know about CFF, but like C2C leagues, he was like a 3rd-round pick, probably right around that, maybe a little bit lower in CFF leagues. I don't think he goes out there and way down.
He's
way
lower in CFF drafts, yeah.
I didn't really pay attention a lot. When I did the CFF drafts that I did this offseason, I used our rankings, so I'm not 100% sure where he should have gone. But that being said, I don't think he goes out and has a really big game today. I know he's a big name for a lot of people. He's a guy that I would sit. Bigger days coming or bigger weeks coming, but this week I think you avoid playing him if you can.
So, Matt, I just want to follow up. Do you feel good about any of their receivers there today? Deshaun Jones, Dante Demas. Like, do you want to start any of those guys against West Virginia? Are you
maybe Demas, but I'm probably sitting everybody if I can. I mean, again, it really goes to, as we just mentioned, you have so many flex spots that you're playing in a lot of these leagues. I don't know if you can sit any of these guys, but if I could, I would try and sit all of them. I don't think any of them have a really big game.
Fair enough. Chris, who are you sitting today?
I'm sitting Noah Cain. I do not like Noah Cain this week. He's gonna have a really, really tough game, and I think he's in for a world of hurt with a team that we're not exactly sure how they're going to divvy up carries. I think we think Kane's the best back there. I'm not sure it's close. I think Kevon Lee's probably going to be involved. I mean, Wisconsin's defense is great. I think there are just better options. Like, there are teams out there that have Bryant Koback and Noah Cain and should not even get close to sniffing Noah Cain in their lineup if they have Koback, right? Or they have Luke Nichols, or they have any of these guys that we've been talking about. You do not need to start Noah Cain. Yes, if you like him as a Devy prospect, that's one thing. Just keep him out of your lineup. He doesn't have upside this week. He really, really doesn't.
Yeah, I think how that offense shakes out, we don't even. I mean, they were terrible last year as an offensive unit as a whole. I mean, I'm interested in that whole offense. I think I would start Jahan Dotson this week, but I don't think I would start any of the other guys there. Parker Washington, any of the running backs. Probably would not start Sean Clifford anywhere. Anything but the Marianas Trench of deep leagues at quarterback. That seems like a tough offense to project there. Brandon, you've got a guy on the opposite side of this matchup that you're sitting today.
Yeah, Jalen Berger, I'm not going to start. I know Wisconsin likes to run the ball, but looking back at Penn State the past few years, they've actually been a lot better in rushing defense than pass defense. And I know Wisconsin doesn't throw the ball a lot, but I just don't see a lot of rushing yards there. Obviously, you would just be hoping for him to get in the end zone, and there'd be other options I would rather kind of go with that you have more predictable, larger amount of yards. So I would be setting Jalen Berger today.
Yeah, I mean he's not even listed as the starter there. Ches Malusi's listed as the starter. Berger's been dinged up. Have they confirmed that he plays today, Berger? I mean, I know they never really confirm if he's going to play. They just wait until 2 minutes before and you see if he's out there with a helmet on or not. So then do we feel good about Ches Malusi today at all? I know, Brandon, would you play him if you have him anywhere?
No, I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't play him this week just because the unknown of, if they're going to use other bats in there too. And with, since we don't really know Jalen Berger's health and everything going in, I would try to avoid that.
That's fair. So my big name guy that I'm not playing today, wherever I have him, is Jermaine Burton, wide receiver at Georgia. We figure that, no Pickens, Gilbert's MIA, Darnell Washington's on the shelf. Demetrius Robinson transferred out. A lot of things happened here. We think that Burton is probably going to be the main guy there this year. At least that seems to be the consensus, I would say. But I'm not starting him today against Clemson. Clemson has a really, really good defense, guys. I think that, one of the better defenses in the country. If you play in CFF leagues that use a defense, I'm pretty sure they were basically like the only defense that you would want to draft, and then you just stream whatever else is going on. I think that game is going to be low scoring. I would be surprised if Georgia scores more than 21. I think that would be right around their max score. I think they lose that game. I think Clemson wins. And I just think, they'll give JT Daniels a hard time with the pass rush. He won't have a ton of time to throw. I think they'll be all over Jermaine Burton. I think he'll have a difficult day. And I think that Georgia is going to know that and try to lean on the run a little bit more. So I think that's going to take some of the volume out of play as well with that stable of running backs. So I'm not starting Jermaine Burton. I actually wouldn't feel comfortable starting any passing option there at Georgia this week, including JT Daniels. Any word on Mookie Cooper's availability today? I have not heard anything. Has anybody else heard anything on that? I'll look as we're kind of chatting here, but
no, I have not seen anything. Yeah, he was at practice a couple days ago, but he didn't participate in all the drills. That's all I've seen. They haven't said if he's going to play or not today. That's kind of the last thing I saw on Cooper.
I wouldn't play him either this week. In general, we have no idea what his role looks like in that offense. We have no idea what that offense is really going to look like for him. And he has like a lower leg injury, so if he's questionable, I'm not super excited to roll him out there either. I think you need better options.
Yeah. Tough one for a guy that you figure probably, is getting a ton of volume in that offense. Do we have any other guys that we are sitting today? Chris, I'll come back to you first again.
I actually like the call on the Georgia passing game in general. I think I'm probably not going in on the Fresno State offense either. They get an Oregon team that has a really good defense. I think a lot of people saw that big game last week and say, okay, well, maybe Fresno's going to cover. Oregon is Oregon and UConn almost play different sports. Like, they are not comparable teams. And so it's like that scene in Pulp Fiction where Samuel Jackson's like, hey, it's not even the same fucking sport. That's how it is. That is UConn and Oregon. And so I'm not rolling out Fresno State players this week. I think they're just a bad bet. And I don't think you have to start Jalen Cropper. I also am a little bit worried. There's just a lot of games where I think you don't have to invest in offense. Like, I'm not playing Keontae Ingram this week. I think I've seen a little bit of hype for him. I think you could probably sit him. I'm not playing. I'm not really rushing out to play Jaden Wally this week. And I love Jaden Wally. Don't get me wrong. But I'm a little worried about what that injury looks like. And there's on that depth chart right now. It's like, that's a bigger name that I think you could probably stay away from. I also think that you can probably stay away from a lot of your and really almost anyone in the Indiana-Iowa game. I don't really like the options there. I think Penix is probably a sit. I think Ty Pfeiffer is probably a sit. I don't really love Tyler Goodson. I think some people like him more than I do, but the only option that I really like in that game is Sam Laporta, because I think he's productive as a tight end. But all these low total games, really, I'm just staying away from.
Iowa, Indiana feels like a traditional 6-3 Big Ten game. It really, really does.
I hope so. I hope so bad.
Yes, fun times there. Matt, do you have any other guys here that you're, just flat out not playing anywhere?
No, I think Mott's probably named most of the big name guys. I would say, I was trying to think of somebody, but I mean, no, I can't think of anybody. Maybe Carson Strong, I guess. He was probably drafted fairly highly in CFF. Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, Austin. You seem to know more about that. I maybe wouldn't play him today. I don't know if he scores that high, but outside of Strong, I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head.
So here's a game that I want to ask you guys about if we're starting anybody in it. UCLA came out last week and just absolutely blitzed Hawaii, destroyed them across the line, both sides of the ball. They have a slightly tougher matchup this week in LSU. It is at UCLA, so I think that probably helps them a little bit. Are we starting, either of the running backs there? We'll start with that. Britton Brown, Zach Charbonnet, both had nice weeks last week. We playing either of them against a beefier defensive line. Brandon, you're shaking your head no. Why not?
Well, I think it'll be interesting if they give Charbonnet more carries because he only, I think, had 6 last week, but he burst those long runs, and I just don't think he'll necessarily be able to do that because even at Michigan, he had some games where he scored 3 touchdowns on some long runs, but if he doesn't get those long straight line runs, usually he doesn't get a lot of yards, and just with not knowing how they're going to share those carries and with a better defense, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell which one will, get the touchdowns or which one will get more carries. So I would stay away from those running backs.
They also basically have a running back at quarterback with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Do we feel good playing him today? I think because he looked very bad as a passer last week, but he also didn't have to run. That's his strength. Chris, you're saying no, you would not start DTR this week, who is a guy that, many are banking on to be a top, 15 quarterback throughout the season this year.
Yeah, LSU is a good defense, man. Like, their D-line is really good. I mean, it's probably top 10, 15 unit, so I'm not playing the running backs. And then their secondary is good, too. I mean, I don't really know what DTR's path to, huge upside is this week. I'm not really playing anybody. I would obviously play Greg Dulcich because tight end, but I'm not really playing anyone on UCLA. And the only real option that I like on the other side of that ball is Kayshon Boutte, who everyone loves. I think everyone loves. I don't know anybody that doesn't like Kayshon Boutte.
I can't think.
I heard Felix might not, but outside of him, there's nobody else I know of that doesn't like him.
So, and I do just want to throw out LSU's defense last year gave up about 170 yards per game on the ground. So they're not an impenetrable wall. They're just a lot bigger and a lot better than Hawaii's defensive line last week. I mean, Hawaii's defensive line is basically high school kids, and now you come out against the adults. I mean, it's going to be a big switch for them.
So I think LSU is going to be much better this year. Not much better. I mean, last year they weren't very good, but I think they're going to be better this year, and so I'm less worried about what they did last year. I think that unit's improved. So that's my concern, that LSU's units just overall improved. I think Britton Brown is in play because I think he had the bulk of the carries, but I'm looking elsewhere. I don't really want to play him.
I think I would start Brown as a flex play because I also think he'll get some receiving work, and I think he's going to be out there more than Charbonnet will today because I just think we're going to see the Charbonnet we saw in Michigan today against that LSU team.
Yeah, would you rather start him or Marshawn Lloyd?
Oh, Lloyd without a second shot or without a second thought. But you wouldn't start Marshawn Lloyd?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to start either of those guys. If that's my choice, I'm feeling not very great about how today's going to go.
Well, some of us aren't great at drafting or however you want to put it on. Sometimes you got to make some bad decisions. You got to make the right bad decision. So
that's a good point. All right. And then, so, I mean, you just real quick here. I know we said we really want to start Kayshon Boutte. That's obvious. I can't think of a single game this year that as long as he's healthy, I would not want to start him in. Do we feel good about Max Johnson? I think I would. I think I'd be comfortable starting Max Johnson in a lot of leagues, depending on what your quarterback situation looks like. I'm zero QB. I don't have a lot of DJU. I don't have these guys. So I have some Max Johnson. I'm thinking about playing him this week.
I think he finishes a top 12 quarterback. No, I think he's a top 12 quarterback this week.
Oh, wow. No way.
I don't like UCLA's defense. We'll see. I like him. I think he's going to be good this week.
Perfect. All right, guys. So some start sits there for everybody this week. We'll have more, injury type news and just, from a DFS angle here in the second hour coming up here shortly. Before we jump into that, though, guys, we get to make our picks for the day. I think we all did pretty well last week. The only game that we mostly did poorly on, except for Brandon, was that Nebraska-Illinois game. So let's see how we do on our 5 games this week. Our first one.
I am keeping track of all these, by the way. So yes, the third of us went 4-1. Brandon did go 5-0 last week. The only one who I guess currently is undefeated now on the season.
Man, look at
but he's gonna fuck up today because I saw some of his picks. So we're good. We're good. He's coming back to the pack after this week.
Man, all right. So Penn State, Wisconsin, the first game we're going to talk about here. It's a 12 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. I'm first up here. I'm taking Penn State. I as much as it hurts me to say it, I think, two teams, I don't know what to expect offensively from them, but I'll lean Penn State. I just think they're stronger roster overall.
I'm with you, Austin. I'm taking Penn State. I think they're the better team, and I think that if it comes into a shootout and they have to rely on Graham Mertz to pass the ball to win them the game, I don't think that happens. I like the weapons on Penn State a little bit more, so I'm taking Penn State. You're up, Mox.
Chris.
Oh, I wasn't sure which way we're going. I also like Wisconsin. Sorry, but no, I think Wisconsin's going to just shut down the entire offense. I don't think Sean Clifford's really any good. Noah Canes might say I don't think they're really going to be able to generate much this week. So I think Wisconsin just shuts them down, and we get a good old Big Ten matchup from these two teams. They're both top 10 defenses. I don't think it's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, I'm also picking Wisconsin. I actually really like Mertz, and I just think I would trust him more than Clifford. So if he has to pass, and I just think Wisconsin's a better team, and we don't really know what Penn State's going to be doing on offense necessarily. So I'm going with Wisconsin.
All right, guys. Second game here that we are picking: Indiana at Iowa. That is a 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. I'm going Iowa. I'm not bullish on these quarterbacks that tore their knees up late last year and then are coming back for this opener. That means I'm feeling pretty good about Alabama blowing out Miami today. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but I'm also down on Penix and Indiana. And so for that reason, I will take Iowa.
Oh, I am taking Iowa as well. I don't think Indiana was as good as they showed last year. I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back. I like Iowa's defense more than I do Indiana's offense.
Well, I am really big on Iowa this week. I'm really not worried about Indiana either. I think, like Austin said, we don't know what Michael Penix is going to look like to start the year. And I just like Iowa. I just think Iowa's the better team straight up. I think Indiana's riding off a defense that got very lucky last year. 20% of their opponent's drive ended in turnovers, which is an absurdly high margin. Like, that is ridiculous and unrepeatable. I think Indiana is going to be worse than a lot of people think they are. I think people think they have some great defense. I don't think that's true. So give me Iowa.
So I'm going to be going against the grain again. I pick Indiana this week. It's more of my lack of faith in Iowa in early games. I feel like they always drop one early on, and sometimes their offense is so conservative. I just, even with not knowing what you're getting with Penix, I just think Indiana could possibly score more points, and I just don't think Iowa's offense is going to be that dynamic, at least early on. So I'm going with Indiana.
All right, the third game here, we're going to talk about Miami against Alabama. These early season showcases that Bama does every year, 3:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff. As I said earlier, I am off on these quarterbacks that were injured late last year and are coming back early. Doubly so for Derek King, who gets the honor of having to go up against this Bama defense that I think is going to be more of the usual Bama defense than what you'd expect. I think it's Alabama. I think they cover. I would not be surprised if they win by 25 or 30. I just think this game is going to be a runaway game for the Tide.
Yeah, I'm with you. Not much else to say there. Give me Alabama.
Dang, I am on the opposite of both y'all today. I take that back. I'm on Bama. I'm on Miami to cover. I'm not as confident as y'all are in Bama covering 19.5. I think Miami's not a bad team. I mean, obviously Alabama's great. I like them to win, but I will caveat that with I think it's closer than 19.5 is.
I also picked Bama, and I agree with Austin, man. On the show sheet, I said Bama by 1 million. But I will say on Prize Picks, I did take the over on Charleston Rambo's receptions. It's at 3.5. And in the spring game, they threw it to him a lot short. So I think he could, in some garbage time, get a lot of receptions today.
And I will say conversely on that, I took the under on Bryce Young's passing yards. It was at 325, I believe, when I saw that. And I think, I think they get up early and then they just pound the ball with their large stable of running backs there. Louisiana at Texas, 4:30 p.m. kickoff. Louisiana upset Iowa State early last season. They are ranked to start off the year. This should be a pretty good game. I think it's a close game. I do, but I will take Texas in this one. I just think Sark coming in there. They've got some weapons there. I think they can, and no one is sleeping on UL this year. Maybe Iowa State got caught sleeping a little bit. Texas will not be. They'll be ready for this game. So yeah, give me the Longhorns.
I'm taking Texas as well. I expect Sark to go out there and get his first win with UT. I think Hudson Card might actually have a decent game. I know they're going to play Casey Thompson a lot, but I'm all in on Texas and this offense.
Yeah, I like Texas too. I think it's going to be close as well. I think Louisiana is a good team. And so I'm not sure that the spread right now is 8. I'm not quite sure about that. I liked it more when it was 11, but give me Texas today. And I think it kind of stays close-ish.
Yeah, I'll take Texas also, and I did a DFS, and I actually am playing Card today in that, so I'm hoping he can get a big game today.
All right, guys, the last game for the week, the big one, top 5 matchup, Georgia against Clemson, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. The Campus to Canton Coast to Coast show will be coming on right as this one wraps up tonight, so be on the lookout for that. I think this is a Clemson win. Georgia, I would feel really good about Georgia. I probably would have picked them a few weeks ago, but they just have so many injuries at this point to so many skill guys that I think it really lowers that margin for error, especially against a very strong Clemson defense. If this was DJU's first start, maybe I would feel a little worse about it, but he's played in some big games. He lost that Notre Dame game, but through no fault of his own. So he's got enough experience to not look like CJ Stroud to start off this game. So I think Clemson goes out there and I think they cover. I think the line, I think last time I saw was at 3.5 or whatever. I think they win by at least a touchdown.
I'm taking Georgia. I know they've got the injuries, but I think that defense is going to be one of the best that Clemson not only plays this year, but better than the defenses that TJU played last year. I know that the margin of error is little. I believe in JT Daniels getting that kind of experience he got last year. They're going to be able to rely a little bit on the run game. It's going to be a close game. I agree with what Austin said earlier, that I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a 24-20, 21-27 kind of game, but I think Georgia just squeaks out a win here and gets the upset against Clemson.
I like Clemson too, for basically the same reason Austin said. I think they cover as well. I think they're just straight up better, and I'm also very worried about UGA's injuries. I don't know if JT Daniels is even like a great quarterback, to be honest. Like, his advanced metrics are very poor. I think he's going to struggle this week. So Clemson, I like Clemson to win by touchdown also. I think they're going to easily cover it's 3 right now. Last time I looked, I think you can get it at 3 on some books still. So give me Clemson.
I'm going with Georgia. I actually am pretty high on JT Daniels. I saw some good things, last year, and we'll see if Georgia kind of opens up that offense, because I think that's what they'll need to do. But with all the injuries, but I still have Georgia just mainly based on their defense and a lot of new parts on Clemson's offense. Even though DJU showed great things last year, I think he still might start off a little slow in this first game.
All right, guys. So there are our picks this week. Let's welcome in Alfred and Will. Going to be driving this show here along with Chris in the second hour. How are we doing this morning, guys?
Good morning. We are good. I am actually in the proverbial parents' basement right now, broadcasting. We're having a big Labor Day. It's Labor Day, right? A big Labor
Monday,
Day, pool party and everything.
Same day.
I got to get on for my show, but after this, we're going to be swimming in the pool. So,
love it.
Nice. Yeah, just looking forward to week 1, official week 1. Last week we only had 5 games on the slate. This week, a lot more action. Actually looking forward to the first games coming up, and then pretty much all through the night. Now, stay tuned for Hawaii. They are playing tonight after 11 p.m., so that's a good thing. That's a good
Hawaii
thing.
after dark.
All right, guys, we're going to turn this over to you. Thank you for joining us, everybody, for the first hour here. Good luck in all your CFF games. And most of us will see you tonight on Campus to Canton, Coast to Coast. Take it away, guys.
All right. All right. Second hour of the tailgate. We're going to be talking DFS. We are going to be talking wagers, props, and picks. We are going to be doing an injury blitz at 11:45. So I've got the a good Twitter account is FBS Fantasy Foot. That is the handle. They should be tweeting out a lot of the last second, sideline reports, who's taking first snaps and warmups. And so we'll be following along and making some educated choices with new information as it comes at that last, flurry before kickoff at noon. Will, Chris, you guys ready? You guys excited? This is our first big slate.
Man, been waiting. It feels like I've been waiting for a long time, but it's finally here. And honestly, I don't know how to act. How you feeling over there, Chris?
I'm loving it. I'm loving it all.
What are your just real briefly, just to chat a minute? What are y'all have any plans? Obviously, I'm going to be balancing. We got 3 TVs over here. We're going to have kids in the pool, so I'm going to have to pay attention, but also we'll have one eye on the pool and one eye on some games. What are you guys doing today?
Same here, man. Same here. Just looking. Yeah, same here, man. Just gonna enjoy a couple adult beverages and pay attention to some of these games. Like I said, they start off pretty early and got some good games all throughout the night. So gonna be following that. Obviously want to pay attention to my picks. We got that show that just was released yesterday, debuted 3 and Out. So I got to definitely make sure that I finish at least one better than both of you guys.
High drama in the 3 and Out contest. That is going to be fun. Chris has already taken an L. Unfortunately, UNC last night. That was one of your. Was that part of your parlay or was that your spread?
That was part of my parlay.
Oh, parlay's dead.
Done. Now let me tell you, I was actually disappointed as well. I thought Sam Howell would come out and do his thing. It's obvious that his weapons that are no longer with him and they're in the NFL hurt him big time. I thought he was going to pull a Sam Hainer like he did last week in Fresno State. Started off slow but finished off fast, but didn't happen. He finished with like less than 220 yards, which was crazy. I had him to go over his passing total over 312 yards. So a little disappointing, but you know what? I'm still being positive towards this weekend. Still being positive.
Yeah, that was a tough break. I mean, he killed pretty much every one of my lineups last night for the short slate. It happens. All right, let's get into it, boys. So we have got talk DFS first, and what I like to do first is kind of go over some of our changes from Thursday. So, Chris, one thing I want to do is give you a hat tip here for your Jarrett Doege call. I was up at 6 this morning and said, why not do some research? So I actually, we'll talk a little more about Prize Picks later, but I think Prize Picks is a really interesting tool to use to help with a lot of these things. So they set lines on stats, passing yards, passing touchdowns, et cetera, et cetera. What I wanted to do is I went and looked at DFS salary and the Prize Picks yards over under, and basically did a little ratio of your cheapest dollar per point. And actually, Doege is one of the absolute best. He, in terms of passing yards per dollar on DraftKings, he was second behind Ritter because his line is 267, but he's only like 6,800 or something like that. So, Chris is onto something there. And so he's going up my boards. I think I'm going to have a decent amount of him. Now, he does not give rushing contribution. So this was purely pass yards. But outside of Rattler, he was one of the best points per pass dollar you can get. And if you believe those over-unders, which obviously we know it could, it's just a line, but it kind of gives you a foundation. Chris, why do you like Doege? I may reiterate what you said, I think, from the Thursday show, but anything additional?
Yeah, no, I just think if he was priced higher, I would be off of him, but he gives you the savings to really fit more stuff into your lineup. So I really like that aspect of playing him this week. And I think, so yeah, he's 6,800. I think 3.5x is probably in play for him. I mean, that'll play if you have him at 6,800 and he gets like 24 points. I think that's like 25, 24, 28 points. I think is in his range of outcomes. I don't know if he hits the 300-yard bonus. He needs to probably to win a tournament, but I like him to do it. He did it 4 times last season. Like, I think he can. I don't think Maryland's defense is anything super scary. And so I mean, I still like him this week, to be honest. Like, I'm not really getting off of him because of the savings he allows to get you elsewhere. And so he's my favorite play in the 6,000s.
Yeah. I mean, and he's not a true punt. I mean, you are dropping down to 6,800, but like, the line is 267. There's plenty of quarterbacks priced much higher than he is, maybe because of the game over unders or the totals. I don't know what the algorithm is that creates the salary, but like, I mean, Cade McNamara is much, much more expensive than Jarrett Doege, and his over under for yards, and he's not a runner, I don't think. So his over under for passing yards, which is all you're hoping for, is 197. Like 80 yards less on Prize Picks than Doege, but DraftKings, because they have like the second highest team total, is probably why they did it. But they priced him so much higher. So yeah, good call there. I've made a bunch of lineups already because we're leading. I mean, I can't really make them on the show. So I've done it, and I have a lot of Doege now because you're right. The savings is there. Just to really to say a couple of other guys. So the other, not every quarterback is listed on Prize Picks, so keep that in mind. But the ones that were listed, Doege was second behind Ritter, because I did combine Ritter's rushing and passing yards because he has a very significant rushing contribution. But then it's Ritter, Doege, Rattler, Young, Hainer, Tagovailoa, and Penix. Just to throw out those other names, but Doge's one of the cheapest ones, and price per dollar again, or point, passing yard per dollar is one of the best values. I'm off after looking at that this morning. I'm a little more off King from Miami and Will Rogers, who we didn't like anyway, Chris, but King's just, I know he has a theoretical, 300, 100 double bonus. Like, that is technically possible, but I don't think it's happening against Alabama. And I think he's a little pricey for his theoretical upside is high, but I just think reality is not there for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we're on the same page with those.
By the way, Will, I know we're going to get to you for wagers and Prize Picks, but if you have anything to chime in, feel free. But otherwise, we'll just go through a couple more things here.
Yeah, I just think, in talking about King, I just think he's, if you're looking at Alabama's defense, that's actually probably like on the strongest side coming into this year, and not the offensive side. I think they're going to still do their thing offensively, but I think that they're going to be able to contain King and hold him under all his props that he has going on. So I don't think he's going to have a good game. We saw last year, King can get rattled when he does play like a top defense, and if they do come in with a good defensive scheme, they can contain him. So I think that's going to be true today. They are playing in a neutral field, but still, I just don't think that that King's going to be able to handle that Alabama defense.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, and I agree. I think King might be the type of player that can shred, a middling defense, really shred a middling defense, but probably not when you get into the upper echelon of defenses. It's kind of that like on-off switch is kind of how I see him. I did this. I just thought this was a nice feature. So I did this kind of like points based on Prize Picks over under for yards versus DraftKings salary for running backs and receivers. So let me just tell you, for running backs, Bijan Robinson, actually, who I was a little bit off, came in as the second best. His over under is high. Now, the question is, do you think he's really going to hit his over under, which is, I think, over 100 yards on Prize Picks? But, based on his third, he's like 7,800 or 7,600 on DraftKings. If he goes over 100 yards, that's really nice. And you would imagine he'd get a touchdown as well if he hits that. So he came in second most efficient dollar per running yards. Number 3 is Chris Smith, who we really like. And at 5,700, he's like at 67 yards over under. If he goes over that, at least price per rushing yard, he's good. And he gets receptions. So he's not a pure, two-down banger running back. He's going to get receptions as well. I like that game to stay close, but I don't think he's script independent. So I kind of am more on Smith than I was earlier. And then number 4 is Hassan Haskins, which we've talked about Michigan being awful on offense, no matter what the spread is, no matter what the points they score over the past 4 years or so. It doesn't matter. They've scored 45 points and barely even had a fantasy relevant player, the way they operate. But Haskins is worth noting. He's the 4th best in terms of price running yard per dollar. And then a guy who hadn't come across my radar at all, 5th of the ones that have a prize picks over under is Tyler Goodson from Iowa. And, he split time with Mekhi Sargent last year. But if he's the main guy this year and you're going to get 20 carries, even in a low scoring game, we saw last night, much to my dismay, Kenneth Walker go absolutely off. Sorry about that. Kenneth Walker go absolutely off in a low-scoring game that should have been a defensive struggle. I had no Kenneth Walker, of course. But Tyler Goodson, and Indiana's like maybe good, but maybe not that good. So I'm a little interested in Tyler Goodson. I'm
high on Indiana, man. I'm high on Indiana. I just think that they're gonna. I think that they're gonna. I think that they're gonna definitely ride at the momentum that they had last year. They looked good in a lot of games. So I'm high on them. I'm really, really high on them.
I know. Yeah. That's going to be a head-to-head on the 3 and out. Our bets there. Chris, or any thoughts on those running backs? They just kind of popped when I did that dollar per rushing yard based on the prize picks line.
I'm still staying away from Haskins. I cannot be
probably
convinced otherwise. But he's just a little pricey. I like Goodson some. I think he's fine this week. I think it's what I called him on our show as well. Fine. I think the Indiana defense is overrated. So I have Iowa in this game, but I know Will is the other side. So, but I'm just not a big Iowa fan. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, the thing I like about both Bijan Robinson, Chris Smith, and Goodson out of that group is while Haskins, we don't really know what his rushing or receiving upside is. We do know that Goodson can catch 3 or 4 passes. Chris Smith can too, and Bijan can too. So this was only rushing yards line. So if they're going to be efficient and go over or be very efficient on their price per dollar for rushing yards, and we can get 2 to 3 receptions, and out of 2 of those 3, I know Bijan's the goal line back, and I'm pretty certain Goodson would be a goal line back. Chris Smith, maybe, probably, but they do use 2 running backs in that Louisiana system. So, Goodson kind of popped for me. So just wanted to throw that out there. And then receivers, number 1 price per receiving yard based on the prize picks over underline is Jalen Cropper, who we love. It's a tough defensive assignment going against Oregon this week, but he's pretty discounted and he's still the alpha in an offense that's going to throw it a lot. Kind of interested there in Cropper. And then number 2 in this, again, that West Virginia just mining value, if you'll take the pun, Winston Wright. Chris, he was number 2 in basically passing yards per dollar. So I've got a bunch of him.
I like Winston Wright, and I like Ford Wheaton for West Virginia. Ford Wheaton's even cheaper. I think both those guys could pay off. But yeah, I think, and we like Dogie. It sounds like you. So behind the scenes stuff. Alfred was texting me earlier this week, being like, "Dude, why are you on Dogie, man? Like, what are you doing?" And
I came around.
And he came around. So here we are. And I think if you're going to play him, you probably want to get one of his receivers in because, if he's throwing for 280 yards, 300 yards, someone's going to pay off there. And they're both discounted enough where you can do it. I like Ford Wheaton personally because there's a big savings there. But, I either one I think is in play.
Listen, I think that Jalen Cropper is going to have to do his thing. I just think that Oregon's going to come out. Right now, their team total is set at 41.5. So that just goes to show you that they think that it's going to be a shootout. I think so as well. Even though Fresno State's defense looked good last week, let's just keep in mind they were up against UConn. So there's not a lot that we could take away from that game. I think everybody's going to look good against UConn this year, unless until we get into October and or November and we're talking about college basketball. But for now, UConn college football, not looking too good. So I think that they will fall behind by about 2 scores, and they're going to have to abandon the run. And who else to throw it to but Jalen Cropper?
Yeah, I mean, the game script makes perfect sense for Cropper. He's not a super discount. I mean, 6,100, so he's discounted from last week, but I don't think I found a way to get him in too much, but Winston Wright for sure. And then wanted to mention, not necessarily on a price per receiving yard situation, but 2 freshmen who are severely underpriced and now starting for what should be good offenses is Xavier Worthy at 4,700 for Texas. And late breaking, basically, when the depth chart was released, Troy Franklin at the stone minimum 3K is starting for Oregon in what should be a fairly offensive football game. We had highlighted Devin, what's his name? Devin
Williams.
Devin Williams for Oregon, who was a nice value, but he's 4,600. I mean, honestly, I like Devin Williams' call, but like 3K for Troy Franklin, I'm probably going to have a lot. Like, he's starting in that offense and all the reports out of camp are so good. Just 3K, you just can't argue 3K. I mean, so low.
Great value. That's a great value.
Yeah. All right. We are pretty much right on time. Perfect. Let's switch gears now, unless Chris, honestly, do you have any other kind of new guys you're liking or not for DFS purposes before we switch topics?
I'm a little more in on Bryce Young than I was. I don't think he has a massive ceiling, because I think his over under still 310 or like 320. It's somewhere in that range. Yeah. But I am a little more interested because I do think Miami's going to cover, and so I think he may have to be more involved than I initially thought. So digging in more, I think I'm a little more in on Bryce Young. He's still up there, and I think I still prefer Rattler, but I will play more than I thought I was going to play on couple days ago. I think Miami might have a bit better chance than I think. And I mean, you're out on Derek King. I still kind of like Derek King, but I'd come around on.
I had to roll a Bryce Young lineup. I mean, he's not necessarily a main play for me, but like I did a Bryce Young, Jamison Williams stack. Like I think Williams is underpriced. I think Bryce Young's got. You could also run naked Bryce Young because he's going to rush. Maybe he gets a touchdown or 2 on the ground. So I think he's worth a play. And so, yeah, certainly a good call on Bryce Young. And maybe he'll be a little less popular because people are going to be like, I'm not going to pay that salary for this dude who I've never seen play before. But it's Bama. He could come out and go for 40. I mean, it's Bama. It doesn't matter for Bama.
It's also
go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's also cheap to stack with Bryce Young outside of John Mechie. I mean, James Williams 5,200. Slade Bolden is 3,600. I still like him.
JoJo, is he the min?
JoJo is 4,000.
Okay.
DA Hall is totally out of your lineup at 5,400.
Right. But
if you want to get real weird, Cameron Latu at the mid. He was really involved in the spring game.
For sure. And Jamison Williams, the kind of guy only needs he'd go 260-1 at 5,600, and that would be 14 points. I guess that's not that good, but he's a deep threat, and he could really pay off with 1 or 2 catches. All right. Breaking update. We've got it kind of expected, but Theo Weiss is officially out. He is not warming up. Drake Stoops, kind of their slot guy from last year, is out as well. To me, that just means Marvin Mims. You got to fit Marvin Mims. With Theo Weiss out, I think you've got to play some Marvin Mims this week. He was great anyway, but if Weiss is confirmed out, which he seems like he is now, Mims has 122 upside, like 10 catches. He's got a lot of upside now because Weiss to me was kind of the guy, even kind of second in line. And if he's out, we got a bunch of freshmen and some guys who stink or who haven't really proven jack squat yet, like Hazelwood and freshman Mario Williams, who maybe Mario Williams with Stoops out becomes interesting at the minimum.
and we talked about it on the show, and I talked about it even before you got on. I'm gonna talk about it again. I still like Austin Stogner. I think he's a good way to get different in that game, and I think he's 4,400. I don't think that's too bad. Is the massive upside there? I don't know if he can hit like 25 points, but I think that's a good price for him. And there's Theo Weiss is not playing, which is great. I mean, not for Theo Weiss, but it's great for the other options there. So I still like Stockton. I think Stockton.
Actually, I'm gonna figure out a way. We're gonna go live. I've got to figure out a way to get a Mario Williams just because I want to do it. So I'll do it right now in a minute. That's me just kind of doing stupid stuff. Don't necessarily follow that advice. All right, let's switch it up. We got Will here. We love everything you say, but specifically, let's talk about some wagers. What do you liking? You got any line movements since last we talked? We did our 3 and out on Friday, and now it's Saturday morning. So any value plays, any things that kind of came to your mind over the last couple of days, line moves? Give us a recap of where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of line moves, we're looking at Arizona State at Purdue. The line opened up at 65. It went up as high as 69, and now it's at 68.5. So again, that's a major jump. If you're looking at anything over 1.5, 2, you may start to draw some caution there. But at 68.5, I got to go with it. Again, I think that we're playing in Indiana, and I think this team in Arizona State can put up points. So I'm going to go ahead with the over on that, and I think that it's going to be a good game to look at the live betting. So just make sure you're following every quarter and you're following during commercials, seeing what the line moves are and things of that nature. But the second one is a UGA at Clemson. Not a big jump, but if you're looking at it opened up at 50 points. Now it's at 51.5. I got to go over. I just don't understand why they think that, a quarterback that's coming in that had a good showing last year when Lawrence was out, did his thing, coming in as a clear favorite and a clear starter for Clemson. I know he's going to put up yards. He's going to stuff the stat sheet. So give me the over on that game. 51.5 is just too low in my opinion. And looking at not only a couple of days ago, we saw what happened in the OSU Ohio State versus Minnesota game. That live over hit about like 50 points. I jumped all over it to begin the third quarter, and they ended up with 76 total points. So listen, if you want to keep on donating to Will's fund, more than happy. Wallet is always open.
That's great, man. Yeah, there's a lot with the Clemson UGA game that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm a little worried. Anytime something seems so far off what I would expect, I get worried that like I'm missing something, and the people that are doing this for a living know something I don't. But I mean, anything under 60 feels low for UGA Clemson. I mean, look, I know that their defenses are good, but Georgia's offense is going to be much better than what we saw for half the year last year. Even if you don't believe that JT Daniels is like a 101 NFL pick, I think he's good, and he's got enough weapons, and they've got a strong, line running game. They're going to put up points. They're not going to get shut out or anything like that. And Clemson, I don't care how good Georgia's defense is. UGA is going to beat up anybody. He threw for like 450 against Notre Dame last year at Notre Dame, I believe, and Notre Dame had like a top 5 defense. I don't care how good Georgia's defense is. TJU is going to smoke them. This is going to be an over game. Put it on my tombstone, man. Anything under 60 feels like you got to play over.
I agree. Right under my first and last name, just have that right there, the over under on this game, because that right there is just ridiculous. Again, if the sharps know something that we don't, and it looks too good to be true, and all of us are jumping on it and we missed, and so would be it. But like you said, anything under, to me, 57 points is just you have to jump all over it. You have to.
Yeah, I'm there. And I guess that's a late game, so we'll see if it moves more. Some lines I like. Actually, Chris, you got any lines that you are liking as of this morning or something? Anything new?
Yeah, so I added a couple today. I liked Oregon State +7 against Purdue. I added that this morning. I I added Iowa 3.5 this morning. I think they're going to just not crush.
Yeah, well,
that
moved.
Indiana.
I think it's at 4 in some places now. That's gone from 3.5
really?
to 4, I believe.
Dang. So last I looked, it was 3.5. I like 3.5.
That's better than 4, so you did all right.
Well, I have Iowa covering. I don't want them to cover 4. I want them to cover 3.5.
No, it's minus. So you'd rather them
minus. Yeah, Indiana. Indiana is an underdog there.
Oh shoot, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, you did good. Hooray!
Yeah, hooray. That's good. I didn't realize. I also added Miami 19.5. I think they're going to cover. So that. Oh, last one. Sorry, I added Central Michigan covering 14.5 against Missouri. I think that's pretty interesting. I think Central Michigan's slightly better than that.
Yeah,
Chris, I have to say, man, your picks, I like the way you go about it because you're taking like some good risk here. You're taking like some big risk. But if they turn out on the right side, on your side, then that's phenomenal. I would stay away from Miami covering against Alabama in the first game. I just got bit too many times in the past year. So I'm all over them or I just stay completely away. So kudos to you, man. Best of luck on that one.
I'm ready to get funky.
Yeah. Well, you gotta. I have to watch myself going on tilt morning of, and starting to just do silly stuff when I'm process all week, and then the day of I get excited. But here's a big number I kind of like. I know Will and I both love San Jose State to cover 14. I am going to sprinkle that money line at plus 450. A lot of people would say, oh my gosh, shocking. San Jose State comes in and beats USC. But I just think the type of team San Jose State is built for an upset like this. Really nasty, strong defense against a team that wants to play, spread it out, kind of that just loosey-goosey air raid. But if you can be hard on that line, maybe they don't even have to blitz anybody, but they can get pressure with just the front four who are nasty for San Jose State. I think that's a recipe. If they can drop, 7 in coverage, only rush 4, but put pressure on Slovis. And we know their O-line was bad, at least in spring game. I think that line for USC is not really good. They may be okay. I just think it's the recipe. I think this recipe has upset written on it. I think SJSU is a live dog. Obviously at plus 450. There's no lock here, but I think it's a very worthwhile wager. I also like Western Michigan to cover against Michigan just because I think Michigan's trash. I like Fresno to cover 20.5. I wish it could be 21, but the Fresno defense, even though it was UConn, I thought they looked better than I expected. So I know it was UConn, but like they just smoked them and they were getting pressure. Again, it was UConn O-line. I just think it was enough for me to say I think they're a little better than I thought on defense. So I think they can keep it within 3 scores, and it may have to be a backdoor cover to get inside of 20 points, but I think that's doable. Here's a wild one. Akron going to Jordan Hare and covering 36.5. Bowling Green just covered that number against Tennessee. Do we think Auburn is good? I don't think Auburn's that good. Will, I mean, you guys have thoughts on
I like that pick. I like
number,
that pick.
But
yeah, I love that pick. I mean, you're talking about new head coach there, and then Bo Nix. Is Bo Nix still the guy? Right.
Never was.
Yeah, right. So I think he's he's vying for that Adrian Martinez Halloween costume, and he's going to be a big disappointment coming into this week. So I like that pick. I didn't really look at it this much that much for this weekend because I got some other good ones that I like, but that may be another one I may have to jump all over that shortly here. So that's a good one. I like that. I like that.
The way I look at it is like Bowling Green is probably worse than Akron. They are horrific. And Tennessee's not very good, but I feel like Auburn at this stage in their program with the new coach, their talent level has dropped. Akron, isn't good, but like I think they're better than Bowling Green, and I think they have a recipe of playing crappy, slow running football, and I think they could keep it within 36. I mean, that's such an insane number. I kind of like it. All right, we talked about Clemson UGA, last one, and then let's go to some props. But Nevada plus 3.5 at Cal. Some trends here. Nevada's not great on the road. I think 6-10 or something over the last few Septembers against the spread. But Cal's also 3-7 against the spread as a home favorite since 2017. So they're not very good against the spread as a home favorite. And frankly, I use the trends to kind of back up my gut, but my gut says, why is Cal favored by over a field goal here? Like, Cal's not good. And Nevada is a plucky little G5 team. So I don't know. That just seemed all right to me. Not like a major play or anything, but I think I may hit it. It's a late game, so you can think about it all day. All right.
So listen, there are some picks here that I did write down that I do love. So I could just fire these off real quick. So I like Oklahoma team total points 48.5. Fresno State at Oregon over 63.5. Oregon total points over 41.5. Give me Indiana plus 3.5 against Iowa. Chris, I'm gonna be hitting you up all day, man. I'm gonna be hitting you up all day. SMU total points over 48.5. We got UG at Clemson. We already touched on that. Over 51.5. I think like, if it's a trap, then just call me bit, because I'm gonna be caught up out there on that bear trap. Bethune-Cookman at UTEP. I listened closely to what Chris was saying last week. I like that. So give me a UTEP at a minus 20.5. And then listen, I'm gonna give you like a little sleeper, a little extra here with not just one asterisk, but 3. UConn. Last season that they played was in 2019, and they just so happened to win one game. I think if they win any game this season, this is going to be their best spot against Holy Cross. So give me UConn minus 3. Because I looked at listen, let me tell you something. I looked at their schedule, and I was like, okay, let's just say they have a similar season as 2019. Which other team can they beat this season? And the answer was none. So I'm going to go with Holy Cross. If they do not beat Holy Cross, not only beat Holy Cross but cover, just call them the Detroit Lions.
Oh my gosh! I mean, that's humiliating to be favored by only a field goal against Holy Cross.
That's what I was going to say. When was the last time that a FBS program opened as only a 2-point favorite against a team like Holy Cross? Like, when is that
a good FCS team?
No.
All right, we have to keep it moving here. Let's give a little blurb about Prize Picks. So we recently engaged in a little relationship with this app, this company. Very excited about that. Our promo code is C2C. So Prize Picks is basically a statistical prop bet app. They have fantasy points over under. They have statistical over under, like rushing yards, like I mentioned before. I've been using it. It's very fun. You do have to parlay picks together, so you can't simply just do a single ticket with one prop. But you have to parlay some together. But there's some flex options. You don't have to win the whole thing. So if you go 3 or 4 of your bets together, then you can. If you only win 3 out of the 4 or 2 out of the 3, you can still take home a little bit of winnings there. You don't have to win them all. And then there's a choice. You can do a full-on real, I got to win them all, and you get better odds. But it's very fun. And they have college, which is great, because I think Will's been looking at sports books, and there are no college player props. At least they're not putting them out routinely.
So I will say this, one of the best things, if not the best thing about Prize Picks, is that these lines, these props are up early during the week. So you don't have to wait till the day before the game or the day of the game to go ahead and scatter around and run around looking for these props. So you can go ahead and see what you want to do, test them out, and then go from there, and then look at what the payouts are going to be. So Prize Picks is definitely going to be my go-to all year, all season long.
Yeah, absolutely. And they move. So I was able to get some stuff, real early when those things drop. Jump on something if you think it looks good right away, because they will move. I mean, Bryce Young was down from 325 to 315 within a few hours. So people are jumping on these numbers and they move, but there's some nice ones especially when they drop. I've got a couple running today. I just wanted to throw some out there, and then Will, you can give me what you've got, and Chris as well. We have about probably 10 minutes before we're going to have to hit all these injury updates. But Anthony Brown under 255 passing yards feels pretty good. He's like only gone over that like a handful of times in 30 career starts. Any South Carolina, I'll let Chris talk about South Carolina. I know you're going to talk about South Carolina, but hint, unders for their passing game. One I really like, Will Mallory is sitting at 2 receptions and 32 receiving yards. He might be Miami's best option in the passing game today. They are going to have to pass the ball. I like him way better than Mike Harley's numbers. I think he could be their number one option pretty easily. And so 2 receptions feels like a slam dunk. I mean, absolute slam dunk to go over that. DTR under 2 passing TDs. Now it has to be passing TDs. So he could score 2 on the ground. I don't see him getting 3 passing TDs today. And that's what he would have to get for you to lose that. Otherwise you can push it 2. That feels pretty good. And then let's see. Oh, I think it's James Cook, the running back for Georgia. He has 55.5 as his over under rushing yards. He's used more in the passing game. They're gonna run Zamir White. Cook will get in the mix, but also probably Kendall Milton. I don't see him getting over 55 rushing yards. Maybe receiving yards, but 55 feels high.
So that one's down too. That one dropped precipitously this morning to the James Cook one.
Where are we at?
You got it. 42.5.
Oh yeah. See, these things drop. Get in when it's high.
Wow.
That's huge.
I might take the over on the 42.5.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I got here again, listen, I was disappointed by Sam Howell. The bad thing about that game is that it started kind of early. I was getting ready to head to dinner. I was so upset that I had to skip dinner. So woke up pretty early. But again, I'm not gonna let that deter me from my original plan going into week 1. So I'm gonna go ahead with the quarterbacks that I think that are gonna make a strong push this year, not only for their teams and offensively, but also for a Heisman Trophy winner here. So I got Bryce Young, Alabama, over 310.5 yards passing. We got DJ. I'm not going to try my hand at his last name because that would not be a good look. So DJ for Clemson, over 275 yards and a half. And then we got Spencer Rattler, Oklahoma. I think he's the favorite. We got him kind of hefty, but I think he does throw for 400 plus today. 345 and a half passing yards, and give me over 3 touchdown passes. Talua Tagovailoa for Maryland, give me over 254 and a half passing yards. I just think that what he did last year coming in Maryland in his first year, he did pretty decent in some games. And so I think this year he's going to make a push to probably try to be one of the top quarterbacks in the NCAA, which is great. Then we got Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati. I think this over-under is pretty low, but I'll take the over, 262 and a half yards passing. And then the last 2 are going to be receivers. Last 2 is going to be John Mechie for Alabama, over 85 and a half yards receiving. And then Justin Ross from Clemson, 79 and a half. Let's go.
Yeah, I think Ross might be their alpha kind of late in the summer, or, we didn't even know he was going to play football ever again, back in January. But since then, he's been fully cleared, presumably fully healthy. I think he's the best. I mean, they have a good, fairly deep receiving room if healthy, but I think he's the best one. And so I agree. I think over everything DJU, over most Clemson numbers. Joe Nagata is 45 and a half. I mean, all he needs is 1 catch. 1 for 50 is doable. I mean, I think the Clemson Georgia, either I'm just way off. Everything about that game feels too low, especially on the Clemson side. Chris, what are you looking at?
All right. I got a few. I like Chris Rodriguez, 101.5 over. Letty Brown, 101.5 over. I think they're both going to have monster games. Tank Bigsby, 98.5 over. They got Akron. Spiller, 108.5 over. I love all these rushing. I think these running backs are all going to smash. I have Rattler under 345. I think that's just too high for him. And that game, I think, is going to get out of hand. The line moved 10 points when it got shifted back to Norman. And so I'm kind of out on Rattler at that. I have Ritter also under 262 for basically the same reason. I just don't think they're going to have to throw very much. And then I got my boy Zeb Nolan, who I'm so sorry I have to do this.
Zeb season.
I have him under 187. It's Zeb season. And then likewise, sorry.
I think actually Zeb, you may mention this, but I think under 1.5 touchdown passes is pretty good too. Like, is he going to get 2?
No.
He's like, no.
No, I do like that one as well. I like Nick Muse under 56.5. I have no idea where that line came from either. That is absurd to me.
Well, and he's at 3.5 receptions. I kind of like that even better. He's not going to catch 4 balls today. He may not even get 4 targets.
No, I don't really understand the Nick Muse. I am a terrible South Carolina fan. I am more cynical than anyone else about this team. But I'm going to be honest, that is ridiculous.
Your team, though. You know your team. You can be realistic.
I know my team. And then the last one that I really am interested in is I think Marvin Mims over 82.5 is a nice bet, even though I have Rattler going under. I think Mims gets over 100 yards. They still have another option there. And so I think he's interesting. And then one more is, and I'm just going to blanket this, everything Will Mallory. Like, I think we're all in on Will Mallory. Like, 32.5 receiving yards, 2 receptions. Like, I like Will Mallory. Like you said, right? So I think Harley leads the team. But I love Will Mallory's this week. I think he's has his great value on Prize Picks. So I really like him.
Yeah. No, everything Will Mallory. I like that. Okay, there's really no news coming in. I don't know if any of you guys are on Twitter or anything, but like the main account that I follow doesn't really have anything, so we can keep talking. Let's touch on the
Sam Pickney is out. Who I like. Yeah, I like him as a CFF option, and I think that he's someone that you could have been plugging into your lineup today. So I'm interested in
McCoy,
how that game shakes out, but I'm not up. Take Sam Pickney out if you have him.
Well, for DFS purposes, that's not gonna. It's not on the slate. Fortunately, we don't have to pick between Army and Georgia State players. But in your C2C college football side, pull out Pickney. And if you're on the fence about Cornelius McCoy, the other receiver in that offense, I think he's pretty good now. Should get a ton of targets. All right, night slate. Any thoughts on that? I do have thoughts, but I've been talking a lot. Anybody, Chris, have you peeked at the night slate? There's some really shocking numbers to me.
I have not done as much research as I think you have, but I think that there's a lot of value in that Clemson Georgia game. Like kind of we've been talking about all day. We think that maybe Vegas knows something we don't.
Do you know DJU's salary off the top of your head?
It's like 63, 64, something like that.
6,300. That is mind-blowing. He's going to be on 100% of in 100% of lineups. You cannot fade him at 6,300 because everybody's going to have DJU. That makes no sense to me. He's $300 less than another guy who I think is a crazy value, Tyler Shuck for Texas Tech. And his Prize Picks over under passing yards is like 280. So if you do the same math that I was doing earlier, he would have been the best price per pass yard of the early slate. So Shuck's great at 6,600 and DJU's $300 less. What is happening with that Clemson game? Why are these numbers so low?
I actually like that Tyler Shuck over on Prize Picks, but that's a good,
the over or the under?
I like the over.
Yeah,
I think that game's going to just be a shootout.
Yeah, against Houston. So I think Shuck is a good play. for Texas Tech, and especially his. I mean, you could go shuck DJU and log off. I mean, why do you need?
So real quick, interesting point that you guys bring up that game. I know we did the 3 and out the other day, and Texas Tech was actually favored by 1, so it flipped. Now Houston is favored by 2.5. So it seems like everybody got on board. They listened to the show and they watched the show, and they're like, you know what, Will's onto something. Let's jump on it. So I just want to make sure that absolutely, let's go. There's a lot of room on this yacht. There's a lot of room on this yacht. All aboard.
I saw Houston this morning. Is still dogs on some books. I saw them at 1.5 this morning as a dog.
Okay.
And I was shocked when I saw that. But no, I looked recently, and they're the favorite most everywhere now. So that was like a late movement, but I think I actually like Houston to cover.
There we go. There we go.
I think Will has that locked in too from whatever it was the other day, so that's nice.
+1. That was my +1 money line. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, baby.
I like that.
As far as another freshman who's listed as a starter, who's the minimum 3K for the night slate, is Brian Thomas Jr. going up again for LSU, going up against UCLA. Again, any starter, especially freshman starters at the minimum, like, they have unknown, untapped upside. We don't know. I mean, Keishawn Boutte is going to require a lot of attention from UCLA. So maybe, if Brian Thomas is on the other outside and he's getting manned because they have to focus on Boutte, I mean, he could have a decent game. The thing is with the freshmen, you don't know what their upside is. And so I like that with the Stone minimum 3,000 for that. Can kind of unlock some stuff. An interesting one here. We've said we like Oregon State at Purdue for various reasons. I like Oregon State to cover and maybe win that game at Purdue, who has a horrible track record as home favorites under Braum, their coach. But if you think that's true, and Will likes the over, Deshaun Fenwick at 3,100. I know Chris likes him from his days at South Carolina. He transferred to Oregon State. He's listed as an or on the depth chart. They have like 3 ors for running backs, but he's way cheaper than the other guy. It's 3,100 in a game that I think they'll be able to impose their will. Hat on a hat, old school, grinded out football. I think Fenwick is interesting at 3,100. There's not a lot of great running back options. The other one is Tuggle for Ohio at Syracuse. Chris, I know you're betting Ohio, right? So what do you think about that game flow, and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think Tuggle's probably going to remain involved throughout the entire game, so I don't think he's a really bad play at all. I think I am picking them to win, so I think that he might get a little bit of more run in the second half as well. Just keep pounding Tuggle, and I think Tuggle's a pretty good running back too. Like I like him from a CFF, and I like him from a fantasy perspective in general. So I like Tuggle.
Yeah,
Syracuse defense is not very good.
Right. I mean, how's Ohio's defense? You've looked into this game, I think, a little more than I have. What about Tucker? He's only 4,900, and last year as a freshman, he was a very clear, bell cow workhorse, got like almost 50% of the backfield production. Is Ohio a good defense? Could Tucker be a play at 4,900?
Maybe. Their front seven is really like not very good. They're not a good defense.
Ohio.
I mean,
yeah,
they're pretty bad. The only issue that I have with Tuggle is that the strength of Syracuse defense is that front seven. I think I think Tuggle's pretty good though, and I don't mind him, but it is a little worrisome with how good the front seven is. But Ohio's defense is bad, so I like Sean Tucker at that price. I think he's pretty good. I think that's a good play, and I don't whatever Syracuse's quarterback name is.
DeVito, I think.
Yeah, Tommy DeVito. I wish it was Garrett Schrader. I think Garrett Schrader is better. Yeah, probably not, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was struggling to find guys that I was like, oh, he's definitely like the primary ball carrier on the night slate, but Tucker stood out to me, Tuggle stood out to me, and then a super cheap option, Fenwick. So I think less running backs, maybe, you're going to play 4 receivers on the night slate and try to find 2 running backs you feel okay about. One more name. I like Clemson receivers, or a couple more names. So Clemson receivers not named, Ross and Ladson. So Nagata at 4,300, EJ Williams at 4,200. I think they're all going to be involved. We've already said we like Clemson to be kind of over in all categories. So I think that's a decent play. And then Mannix for Texas Tech. He was like a freshman All-American at a G5 school. I can't remember where, maybe Rice or Nevada maybe, but he's transferred to Texas Tech. He's 4,700. He's going to be their primary slot receiver. And I think that's interesting in a game we like to be a shootout. We like Tyler Shuck, the quarterback, and he's only 4,700, cheaper than, their alpha is kind of, I can't remember his name. EE is his initials, but he had a good season.
As a comma? Yeah, it's like
yeah.
Or, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Eric. I think
actually,
the first.
Yeah. So I'm looking at that entire slate right now. I actually think that game has a lot of value. I think both Toon and Chuck are in play. I think you could stack that, like a lot of that game. And I really like. I think Nathaniel what's Dell's price? I think he's a nice one too.
Yeah.
So he's 6,000, but I still like him. I think that game is going to be high scoring, and I think he's the alpha for Houston. So I really like Dell still.
Yeah. So I think that game, check it out. It's not a kind of a marquee game, but could score a lot of fantasy points for the night slate. There's really no injury. I mean, I guess it's week 1, so a lot of stuff is kind of assumed. We kind of know during the season. I think this part of the show is going to be a little bit more chaotic. We got about 5 minutes left. Want to give you guys a reminder. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at AlfredJF. Will is at biasedopinions_, and Chris is at ChrisMoxley19. We are going to be active all day today, of course, but we're active during the week. We're always tweeting stuff out. Hit us up, questions, DM us all about any questions you may have. We want to be here to help you, whether it's your wagers or prize picks or DFS. And then we have slate write-ups. So Chris does a full Saturday slate write-up. That's members only on campus2canton.com. Will does the short slate write-ups. That's free to anyone. We've got betting cards from Chris. Those are free, and Will's are behind a paywall for members only, campus2canton.com. Once again, we have the Why Wait Till Sunday podcast and show every Thursday. That's when we talk about the Saturday slate, kind of initial feelings about it. 3 and Out podcast and show is also on Fridays. That's when we're doing our little contest. We give a spread bet, a money line bet, and a parlay. And we're going to keep track of those throughout the season. See who the sharpest guy in the room is. Probably going to be Will, but we're going to give it our best effort. And then don't forget to tune in tonight. Coast to Coast was actually more popular than the Tailgate last week. So we are trying to compete with Coast to Coast, but you should watch both. That's going to go on right at the end of the game for Georgia Clemson, I believe, is the scheduled time. So roughly 11 o'clock. But tune in for the evening show, Coast to Coast. Any final words, guys? We're about ready to start our engines.
Like Alfred said, man, definitely going to be tuning in to all the games. If you guys have any questions, any live betting advice, feel free to slide up in them DMs. They're open, and you'll definitely be safe if you're sliding into that.
Yeah. And we are also, if you are a member of Campus to Canton, you've got access to our Discord. We're going to be chopping it up all day in there, just like we did last week. If you're not a member, probably want to change that. It's only $2.99 a month, and you get to just talk about all this stuff all day long. And Saturdays are absolutely jumping in there, having a great time. So thanks for joining us. And, that's about it. I give you 2 minutes back, make some lineup adjustments, but I'm out.